Bonjour tout le monde. Hello everyone. Welcome to this webinar on data governance and data trust. It seems that we were not mistaken when we said data governance is a major issue and that Quebec Data Trust civil law offers a great potential to solve it. We are quite a few attending this webinar today, so I'm very happy to host it. My name is Emilien Gruet. I'm coordinating this project at TIES, and I will be the moderator of this webinar. We're giving this webinar in English because it was financed by a federal project, but a French version, an updated version, will be offered in the coming month. This webinar was organized by two organizations that I'm going to present briefly. TIES, the organization I work for, is a network of both practitioners and academics working in the field of social economy, social innovation, and territorial development. TIES brings these players together to mobilize their knowledge in order to better understand society needs and challenges and to nurture innovative solutions to social problems. In other words, we help people learning from each other and working together towards a better future. OpenNorth, the co-organizer of this webinar, is a Montreal-based nonprofit that brings together technology and data specialists. Their expertise spans various domains such as open smart cities, data and tech governance, and management and collaborative data sharing. Before introducing our two panelists, I'd like to highlight the key contribution to this ongoing project of Law Professor Alexandra Popovici of Sherbrooke University and Anne-Sophie Hulin from the Paul-André Crépeau Center for Private and Comparative Law of McGill University. I also want to thank the Common Approach to Impact Measurement Project and the City of Montreal for their financial support that has allowed us to work on this important issue. I'm gonna put in the chat the project I just mentioned. Okay. Sorry about that. That's it. Okay, so now let me introduce you to our first speaker, Sarah Gagnon-Turcotte. Sarah is the director of the Applied Research Lab at OpenNorth. She will essentially set the stage for Jessica's presentation. Based on OpenNorth's most recent research on open smart cities and data partnerships, Sarah will show how responsible, effective, and accountable data governance is key to alleviate citizen concerns related to data privacy and unlock the potential of data collaboration. So Sarah, the floor, shall I say, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Emilien. Can you confirm with me that you are seeing my slide correctly?
Yep, it's all good.
Great. Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, so hi everyone. I want to start by noting that data governance research space has seen a lot of growth in recent years, and OpenNorth is certainly a part of this. So I wanted to give you a quick word about us. We're a nonprofit. We work with communities and organizations across Canada and internationally. We help them leverage data and technology to empower them to become more transparent, accountable, and inclusive. We developed over the years an integrated approach combining research, capacity building, solution design and implementation, and collaboration to achieve our goals. And on data governance, we've worked with many of the largest cities in Canada, as well as the private and public sectors. So we are currently the lead organization for implementing a collaborative data governance program for the Cities of Montreal Smart City project called Montréal en Commun. And we are just about to publish a new report on data partnership and their governance. I can't wait to share that with the world. So today, I hope to share with you some of our recent learnings based on this research in order to show how relevant CS research is currently for the data governance space. So to begin with, we know that more data is being collected than ever before. This trend is driven largely by the private sector, but increasingly with the public sector as well. Connected, smart technology, digital infrastructure are generating virtually limitless quantities of data at an increasingly granular scale. And this new normal creates clear opportunities for data collaboration, which could serve or not the public interest. Data collaboration either within private or public sectors or in public-private partnerships as well has the potential to optimize planning and service delivery by, for instance, improving knowledge and understanding of citizens' needs and lifestyle patterns, to enable collective problem solving and innovation through the sharing of data and infrastructure, allowing sometimes competitive dynamics to be overcome, to inform decision-making and even policy by supporting the creation of interoperable data and improving our understanding of complex social ecosystem. And if used to serve the public interest, eventually generate new and improved public goods, new knowledge, safety, better transit, cleaner environment. These are, there are opportunities and examples in all sectors. OpenNorth alone supports initiative in research, health, culture, cities, etc. You name it. But these opportunities, of course, come with several challenges and risks. For one, the regulatory environment in which data collaboration happens right now is still evolving. It's really moving fast. In fact, the Canadian government has just tabled a new bill called C11 to reform its previous private sector data protection law called PIPEDA. And some provinces have their own laws, such as British Columbia, Alberta, and Quebec. But in Quebec, there's also a new bill that was just tabled, the Projet de loi 64, which also target the private sector. And Ontario has just launched a consultation on whether it should enact its own private sector data protection law. So as you can see, there's a lot of movement. And although these laws regulate potential risks and prejudices that can arise from the collection and use of data, such as the right to privacy, the circumstances when consent is required, the right to an explanation when an automated decision-making system is used, that's a new one. There are still additional risks and challenges that emerge from the operational context in which data is collected, shared, used, stored, etc. So for example, risk of unethical usage. Well, we all heard our stories recently where data was handled in ways that led to the creation of discrimination, bias, surveillance. Another challenge is to clarify who owns the data. This can be quite difficult in a data collaboration context where valuable derived data can come from the aggregation of a mix of private, public, and open data, for instance. And currently, convincing citizens to give away their data is quite difficult. Large-scale data breaches have occurred in the recent past, resulting in millions of Canadians having their personal data exposed. And the debate around COVID-19 contact tracing apps has shown that at least a segment of the public is quite concerned about their personal data protection, even when the initiative is led by the government. So social acceptability and public trust in digital initiatives are quite low. So this is where data governance has a role to play. So how can data governance help? Communities and organizations are faced with two public interest objectives that seems to compete with one another. On the one hand, they want to get the most value out of data. On the other hand, they want to minimize the risk, ensuring that data is used in a responsible and accountable manner. While data governance can help reconcile these goals. It does this by setting up a clear framework around who makes different decisions about collecting, analyzing, accessing, storing, sharing the data in a single organization like municipalities or a private firm, or between multiple organizations like a public-private partnership or a research consortium. It also defines how these decisions are made and how the people who make these decisions are held accountable. In a few words, we can say that data governance is all about authority, decision-making, and accountability. And many initiatives can benefit from a strong data governance program, from one-off projects to large-scale initiatives such as sectoral open data portals, integrated transit dashboard, healthcare research, smart public infrastructure, you name it. Data governance help ensure the quality and the integrity of data at the project level. But most importantly, it sets the term of data sharing, access, and usage within and across many organizations involved in the initiative. So it's one thing to say that we need data governance, but what kind of data governance? The term itself first appeared in the private sector. Data governance aim was to streamline business decision-making in order to what? Improve organizational efficiency, productivity, achieve specific marketing goals. But today, data governance has really become a public issue, not only because it has become easier and easier to collect personal information about individual, but also because large amount of data are now produced with public funds. So prompted by the City of Toronto and the City of Montreal, OpenNorth conducted extensive research on data governance in the public interest, with a specific focus on various types of data partnerships. And in just a few words, because that's not the point of today's meeting, we arrived at the conclusion that such data governance must be collaborative, have a strong focus on delivering results that serve society, and seeks to operationalize 3 strong principles through various mechanisms. Responsibility, which means ensuring the ethical, non-prejudicial use of data. Effectiveness, providing quality, interoperable, and accessible data to partners in the public. And accountability, having clear responsibilities, ensuring legal compliance, making sure that we have a trace of the decision so they are auditable. The potential for data collaboration in the public interest is so great that it has been attracting a lot of interest. Large tech companies showed us the power of aggregated data. So now civil society organizations, public administration, citizens want to have the same opportunities. And today, data collaboration happens under various stewardship and governance structure. Recent research scans by OpenNorth, the Mozilla Foundation, and the GovLab have identified the following structures as the most common. So data collaboratives, data commons, data trusts and fiduciaries, and data cooperatives, among others, are the most common. There's a real buzz around these terms, but because data collaboration is such an emerging field, these categories, well, they're often very difficult to define, even to distinguish from one another. Their description are often based on theoretical exploration rather than real life case studies. And in fact, although there are vast numbers of examples of data collaboration out there, impartial and well-researched case studies are not very common. And this is even more true when we start looking for research about the legal foundation on which are built various data collaboration projects. So this is why OpenNorth is so pleased to participate in TIAS research projects, which is exploring very concretely the potential of the social utility trust, a concept that is unique to Quebec civil law, among other, but who could provide a truly inspiring stewardship model for the world. We are partnering with TIAS with the hope to experiment and maybe even prototype such a data trust based on real life example in the near future in a regulatory sandbox approach. And this will allow us to document and assess if data governance can really be in the public interest. So now that I briefly illustrated why this research is so important in the larger data governance conversation, I think it's now time to listen to Jessica. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you for giving us the big picture. And now, yes, Jessica will dive in on a specific data collaboration, the data trust. Jessica Leblanc is project manager at TIES. She will discuss the idea of a data trust and its potential to steward data according to the interest of a group of actors or in the general interest. A data trust is generally understood as a legal structure that provides independent stewardship of data and aims to promote data sharing for social or business purposes. She will then explore the potential of Quebec's trust law, fiducie d'utilité sociale, to encompass the core idea of a data trust. So, Jessica, the mic is yours.
On ne voit pas tes slides présentement, on voit ton texte.
Vous voyez mon texte, pardon.
Maybe stop sharing and reshare.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Okay, that's perfect.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about this little problem. So, hi everyone. In the past few years, we have seen a proliferation of references to data trust in scientific and gray literature. Traditionally and legally, when we talk about a trust in common law, we refer to the ownership of a property, a good like a farm, a land, or a house for the beneficial interest of someone else. A trust means that instead of owning for my own interest, I own for the interest of someone else. This ownership for someone else comes with obligations. We call them fiduciary obligations. So the fast emergence of data trust, we are talking about a couple of years only, indicates an urge to find a solution to problems that lies at the core of data collection and sharing. Sarah explained these problems like trust, accountability, and the feeling of losing control to the end of cooperation. But what is behind this concept of data trust? What is the relationship between data trust as a concept and trust as a legal mechanism? And how can we apply it to Quebec trust? Those are the questions I will try to answer in this presentation. So the plan is the following. I will discuss the origin and meanings of data trust, the trust laws in Canada and Quebec, and what will be the advantages and downsides of a civil law data trust. First, I want to emphasize the reasons why I think it is important. It is crucial to explore and question the origin and of the expression data trust. Data trusts are characterized by controversies and a lot of buzz. And if we don't take the time to really understand what's behind the idea of this data trust, we can very easily get mixed up in all that buzz and all this information. So it might seem academic to some, but in the end, I think it will pay off if we want to go ahead with the creation of data trust in Quebec, because this kind of project needs mutual understanding and transparency. So the idea of data trust was first expressed a few years ago in 2004, to be exact. It's a law professor, Lillian Edwards, who was concerned with the lack of trust in the internet as a safe environment. She suggested that a trust could be created between collectors of online data and consumers. That was very innovative at this time, but it did not receive much attention until 2016 or 2017. At that time, the idea of data trust was recommended to the British government by an independent report as a way to develop and encourage AI. So the resurgence of data trust is related to the development of massive data sets and computing capacity. One of the barriers to the use of these huge amounts of data was, of course, trust. Trust was perceived as a way to enhance the fluidity of data exchange to ensure these exchanges are secure and mutually beneficial for every actors. From then, data trust became very popular. It was, among other things, at the center of the Quayside project in Toronto. This smart city project was led by Sidewalk Lab, a sister company of Google Inc. So of course, the question of Sidewalk Lab owning urban data and even the need to collect these data received a lot of attention and opposition. One major problem of the Sidewalk Lab Quasat project was the ambiguity surrounding data trust. I like to quote Mariana Valverde on this subject. She's a University of Toronto law professor, and she called the Sidewalk Lab's data trust a magic trick, implying that some unknown scheme was hidden from the public. So the Quasat project was later abandoned. All these events provoked a huge debate about what exactly is a data trust and why are we even talking about this. So as a consequence, like Sarah explained, we saw a huge increase of definitions and models. And to make everything clear, I synthesized all these definitions into 3 categories. So a data trust, depending on whose text you're reading, can be understood as first, a legal trust, second, an independent stewardship of data, or third, a perspective on data sharing. First, there are some law professors who claim that a legal trust may be an adequate vehicle for management of data for both private and public purposes. I will give you one example, the one suggested by Sylvie Delacroix and Neil Lawrence. They propose to create a bottom-up data trust in which data subjects pool their data together, either in a public or private structure. A data subject is simply the person from whom the data originates. So they imagine a world where many data trusts could take form, so data subject could choose where they want to pool their data and for what purpose. The second way to define data trust is confusing to me because it uses the exact same vocabulary of legal trust, the first meaning, but without being actually a legal trust. So in this conception, a data trust is understood as a legal structure that provides independent and fiduciary stewardship of data for the benefit of organizations or peoples. Stewardship refers to the idea of taking care of data and ensuring that the data is used
Jessica, tu es maintenant en sourdine.
Okay, now you can hear me?
You're back, yeah.
Okay. I was saying the way I understand this second conception, data trust is seen as a way to delegate the decision making to an independent entity about who has access to data, under what condition, and to whose benefit. The data trust is seen as an independent entity which will be legally bound by contract, not trust law, to act as a steward to these data with fiduciary obligation. Finally, that data trust is sometimes considered like a perspective rather than a concrete model or solution to data governance. So in some papers, I found that data trust was defined as a legal structure or mechanism that enables a fair and trusted way to share data. In this sense, data trust could be pretty much anything, as long as it conveys the idea that data sharing needs a structure with legal principles and rules that can enhance trust. So if you read about data trust, these are the 3 meanings you might find. As for our work at the TIS, in collaboration with OpenNorth, law professor Alexandra Popovici, and legal expert Anne-Sophie Hulin, we are exploring how the Quebec legal trust might be an appropriate tool for data governance. But in order to do this, we first need to understand what exactly is a trust. Trust as a legal tool comes from England, and it was created a very long time ago. We have trust in Canada because of the English colonization. There is also a specific trust in Quebec since 1994. However, this is a civil law trust. Even though the Canadian trust and the Quebec trust can be similar in some ways, they are fundamentally different. And it is very important to grasp the difference between both, or at least to be aware of this difference, because they are so different in essence that one solution cannot be imported or transferred from one legal tradition to another. So what is the difference between common law trust and civil law trust? To put this very, very shortly, the common law trust is ownership with obligations towards the beneficiaries. The civil law trust is the administration of a property appropriated for a purpose. I will explain this a little bit more. So in both legal tradition, we find three possible roles. We have the settler, we say constituant en français, is the one that sets the trust by transferring an asset. The trustee, fiduciaire en français, is the one that manages the trust. The beneficiary, bénéficiaire en français, is the one that benefits from the trust. So, like I said at the beginning, the common law trust is ownership of a property, a good, but an ownership that comes with obligations to use that property in the beneficial interest of someone else, the beneficiary. The trustee bears obligations toward the beneficiaries like duties of prudence, diligence, and loyalty. All common law trusts need to have a beneficiary, except for the charitable trust, but normally all common law trusts have beneficiaries who are different from the trustee. The trustee can benefit from the trust under one condition, is that there are other beneficiaries. We often see professional trustees. So trustees can receive a salary for their position, but they cannot make unauthorized or secret profits from the position. The beneficiaries in common law also have rights in this matter. They can go to court if a trustee failed to comply with his obligation. That was a very fast introduction to the common law trust, but let's see how trust works in Quebec civil law tradition. There is one major difference. It might not seem important to you at first, but I can assure you that it is, and it makes all the difference in the world. In Quebec trust, no one owns the property in the trust. No one owns the goods that are placed in the trust. In civil law, there has always been ownership, the traditional, very traditional ownership that we all know, because we all own something alone or with others, like in co-ownership. But in 1994, there was this other way for properties to exist that was created, and it's called appropriation to a purpose. In French, we call it affectation. I will show you the disposition, the article that express these concepts. So property belongs to persons or to the state, or in certain cases is appropriated to a purpose. We can still clearly see two concepts here: belonging, which is traditional ownership, and appropriation to a purpose. Quebec's trust is based on appropriation to a purpose, not on ownership of the trustee like in common law. But what does appropriation to a purpose mean? It means that every trust in Quebec must have a purpose, a goal that is determined in the legal act, the legal document that creates the trust. The properties in the trust can only be used in a way that respects and ensures the specified goal. I will come back to this in relation to data in a few moments. It also means that the trustee does not have ownership of the properties. He or she has power over it. It is a power of administration and management. Because goals or purposes are at the center, at the heart of Quebec's trust, the designation of beneficiaries is not always necessary. There could be a trust that has one purpose, like the construction and maintenance of a funeral monument. It is easy to understand that no beneficiaries would be named in this kind of trust. No one benefit from the maintenance of a funeral monument. The importance of the purpose in the Quebec's trust explain why this trust, compared to the common law trust, is interesting in general, and why it is particularly interesting for data collection and sharing. So that brings me to the most important question of this webinar: why Quebec's trust could be an appropriate tool for data. I will discuss 5 features or aspects that makes the Quebec Trust interesting. First, I talked about it. One prominent aspect of Quebec Trust is the evacuation of the question of who owns the data. Many academic papers have been written about this topic, and it is fascinating. But the trust gives us an opportunity to put these questions aside and really focus on the subject of how do we want our data to be used and to what purpose. The second interesting feature of the Quebec Trust is that it is a way to address the question of individual consent to data collection, use, and sharing. Like I said, and I repeat it because it is essential to understand and remember this about Quebec Trust. Trusts are created for a purpose. As a matter of law, most recent laws concerning data privacy, like the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe or Bill 64 in Quebec, express the principle that individual consent must be given for a specific purpose and individuals must be informed of this purpose. Why? Because knowing why and how your data will be used is essential to express and inform consent. So you see where I'm heading with this. A data trust that takes the form of a legal trust in Quebec will have legal parameters that align with the general laws about data privacy and protection. So a data trust in Quebec will have these characteristics. A specific purpose embodied in the legal document that creates it. The trust could not use the data in a way that goes against this purpose. The trustee will be responsible to pursue the specified purpose, and changing the purpose of a trust is not an easy thing. As a consequence, once the data is in the trust, trustees will not have to worry about obtaining consent again under certain conditions. To expand this idea, I will translate in English a recent blog text written by Anne-Sophie Hulin, one of our experts. So she mentions the idea of meta-consent. She says, when individuals give their consent to put their data in trust, they delegate their consent to the trustee. Then the trustee has the responsibility to make sure that the use and sharing of these data stay true to the trust purpose. And data subject can find some control over the use of their data through the intervention of the trustee. As a consequence, the data trust could share and give access to the data it controls as long as the trustee makes sure it is done in compliance with its purpose. All this without the need to ask the consent from individuals again. A third aspect of the Quebec Trust, which makes it an interesting legal instrument, is its versatility. Why is it so versatile? Well, because almost everything about trust in Quebec is left to intention, the intention of the settlers that create trust. The majority of the rules that apply to trust can be found in the 1994 Civil Code of Quebec. And the Civil Code covers topics like the creation of the trust, and administration of the trustee, the beneficiaries, the modification of the trust. All these topics are covered in a little bit more than 100 dispositions. That's not a lot. I am saying this for you to understand, to grasp how much Quebec's trust is the realm of intention. The trust is what the settlers intends it to be. Also, the Civil Code does not limit the purpose that can be pursued or achieved with the trust. These goals can be commercial, private, charitable, or of general interest. As a very, very vivid example of this characteristic, I found a trust whose purpose is to create scientific knowledge about the forest in the region of the Canton de l'Est in Quebec. So the trust receives funding from scientific institutions and the government, and one of the trustees engaged in scientific research about forest and agriculture. So you see how the settlers in this trust imagine a legal structure that is their home and has a very unique purpose. The Civil Code also leaves to the settler to decide the term of the trust. In some cases, like the private trust or social trust, this term can be perpetual. Perpetuity is only a possibility. In the case of data, the term of the trust might be a sensible question because of the nature of data and the constant evolution of technology. So that's going to be an interesting question. So on this aspect of versatility, Quebec's trust is much more permissive than the common law trust. The fourth element to mention is the possibility to use the trust as a way to balance different interests represented by data subjects, data collectors, and data users. A good example to understand this application of the trust is the social trust, which is one of the three types of Quebec's trust. In French, it is called fiducie d'utilité sociale. It's a tongue twister if you wanna try. A social trust is nothing more than a trust with social or general interest purpose. Its essential object cannot be the making of profit or the operation of an enterprise. So the social trust is a legal structure that has the potential to help us make all these different interests converge into a general consideration. Finally, and this is a very important aspect because it addresses the question of confidence and trust as mentioned earlier. The trustees are responsible for the administration of the trust. I repeat what I said earlier. The trustee must act and decide in accordance with the purpose of the trust. Otherwise, he becomes personally liable. Also, the administration of the trust is submitted to a surveillance mechanism that is written in the Civil Code. So some persons can go to court in the case of problems with the administration, the action, or decision taken by the trustee. These persons that can go to court are the settlers, the beneficiaries, if they exist, and I quote the Civil Code, any other interested person. Now that I have mentioned the positive aspect of trust for data governance, I have to say a few words about its downsides. I really hope it's not the case, but maybe you feel lost after this presentation because trust seem complicated. Well, the fact is trusts are complex legal tools. So a lot of education will be necessary. Because of its complexity and versatility, it is possible that a legal expert like a lawyer or a notary in Quebec will be necessary to create data trust. We still need to ponder the compatibility of the world of data with trust because it's never been done before. And since it's never been done before, there are many questions that are still unanswered. And we haven't even discovered all the relevant questions and challenges that will arise by creating a data trust. Finally, it is still unsure that trust will be accepted as an alternative mechanism to consent given by individuals. So this brings me, well, not to question, but to conclusion. In conclusion, I want to emphasize that trust is one model for data governance that shows great potential because it focuses on purpose. However, it is important to say that data trust is not an end in itself. It is a legal tool among others. So I don't want to give the impression that data trust will fit every situation because it won't. An evaluation of the needs and objectives will always be necessary to decide if data trust is an appropriate legal tool or not. So in a future stage of this knowledge synthesis, we will explore some topics left untouched today. The legal framework of privacy, intellectual property, international private law, fiscal consideration, and other forms of data partnership, such as data cooperatives. So at the TS, in collaboration with OpenNorth, Alexandra Popovici, and Anne-Sophie Hulin, we will continue to work and research on this fascinating question for the next month, and we hope for the years to come. So I hope everything was clear. We have some time left for questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. So we have 15 minutes left to take your questions. Feel free to ask them in the language you like. On peut les prendre en français aussi, bien sûr. Je rappelle que ce webinaire était réalisé dans le cadre d'un projet fédéral, d'où l'usage de l'anglais. Just before taking, I see there's a first question in the chat. You can write your questions in the chat or unmute yourself. You should be able to do so and ask them directly. Just before entering that period of question, I want to give you a few reminders. We will gather the material about this webinar and post it on Passerelle, our knowledge management platform. I'm just putting the link here. We have a community specifically on digital and data questions, and that includes the YouTube recordings. So if you know someone who could not attend but is interested in this topic, you'll be able to send him or her all the material. Also, if this topic is of specific interest to you or your organization, do not hesitate in contacting us. In the next few months, as Jessica just said, we'll be exploring with different partners concrete applications of this juridical tool to different sets of data, such as data in mobility or culture. And now, so we have a first question from Hubert Lavallée. If data trust has a term, for example, 10 years, who will get the ownership of the data when the term is reached and the trust is dismantled? Do you have?
Yeah, I can answer that. Normally, it will be provided in the legal document that creates the trust. It can be provided in this document. If it's not, the tribunal will decide where the assets goes, and it has to be in. The person that received the asset have to continue the purpose. So there's a need for coherence. Not coherence.
Coherence,
continuity between the purpose of the trust and the person that receives the asset. So there's no. It depends. The real answer is it depends of the trust and what was included in the legal document. When I talk about intention and everything is left to intention, that's the kind of question that settlers can decide in advance.
So as we've seen a tool that's very versatile. Another question, is there a discussion about data commons? I'm sure both Jessica and Sarah could have answers to that. Who wants to go
maybe
first?
I can jump in for this one. So data commons is one of the things that a civil law data trust could oversee, if I can use those legal words, like I'm not the legal person here, but so it's just a way to create or use data. So data commons are often data that are pooled from different sources together in order to be used as a common resource by different partners, beneficiaries, and so therefore data commons can happen under various stewardship structures, one of which could be the civil law data trust, but not necessarily. So it's just one of the way to approach data collaborations.
Thank you, Sarah. Anything to add on, Jessica?
Well, yeah, from a legal, I'm trained in law, but from a legal perspective, commons is very hard to understand. The thing is, in civil law, it's very hard to think outside of traditional property. So it always comes back to property. And the trust is one way to get out of this perspective and think outside the box of traditional ownership. But I haven't worked yet on data commons, but it's in our plan to continue on this topic and see how can we think about data commons in Quebec civil law. Yeah.
Okay, another question from Viet. Any thoughts regarding the new information data created from the data put in common?
I guess I could jump in again. Thank you for your question, Viet. I think there's a lot of work we collectively need to do to explore what are the best way to share data. And I think Montréal en Commun provides a wonderful opportunity to do that, because the city of Montreal is really helping support, develop capacity building in different organizations, develop capacity in different organizations for them to explore and experiment how they should use data. Should they put it in commons? Should they exchange it one-to-one, like in more private setting? Or should they publish open database, like warehouses, things like that? And that's what our research has really showed us, is that those concrete experiences are barely documented. Most of the research out there, most of the articles out there are more about thought experiment, exploration. So it's up to us to kind of go on the ground, look at what is happening, what works, what doesn't work, and come back and share that knowledge with the larger public to increase innovation. And there's a huge demand in a lot of sectors they want to know how should they share data? How can they collaborate around data? And there hasn't that many best practices out there. So this is what we're trying to, like the need or the gap that we're trying to fill.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from Miranda around examples of fiducie in Quebec.
An example of trust, just an example of trust.
Like for purposes such as research, to giving citizens more control over data.
Yeah, no, I don't have example over data.
That's
that's that's the problem. The one I talked about, the one about producing scientific research or scientific knowledges. That's the best I could find to. That's the nearer I could find from data trust. They really just create scientific knowledge. That's the purpose of the trust. And this knowledge, it's not for private use, it's really public use. So they give it back, or they share it with the land users in this region. So for them to have better agricultural uses, or to manage their forests. So that's really the trust that fits the better the trust or something like this. But there are other trusts in Quebec, like land trust, community land trust, or fiducie d'utilité sociale for conservation, environmental conservation, or agricultural use. So it's quite a new 1994, but we are using it more and more for social utility.
Yeah, it's important to emphasize that it's used for other purposes like the one Jessica just mentioned, but not so much. And we have other projects at CHES to promote this tool, but it has not, to our knowledge, been used for digital data. And that's why we're really excited about this project. Another interesting question here. Is there a way to have a United Nations, quote, a transnational data trust, or any model working above national laws? Someone from Colombia asking.
Yeah, that's really interesting question. That's why I mentioned private international law, because the civil code in Quebec provides that we can choose the law that will apply to our trust. So I don't want to be too affirmative on this subject, because I have just looked into it yesterday. So I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, it may be possible to see cross-national, well, cross-provinces, maybe not cross-national, I don't want to be too enthusiastic, but cross-provinces data trust. But this is a matter I will have to research more to be more precise, but it seems so.
This is something that OpenNorth is also really looking at currently. So it's surprising, but China, India, and Brazil are also working on various data protection law that provide new innovation. That's very interesting. I mean, we all heard about the GDPR in Europe. That's probably the most advanced legal framework internationally. There's also the California example, which is pretty well known. But there are other players in the field. It's really moving fast. I mean, I barely mentioned just what happened here in Canada, and we're almost overwhelmed by comparing different projects. And again, it also goes towards the purpose. So for instance, the GDPR and the Canadian law is really focused on enabling better circulation of data. It has probably this international focus in mind, while the Quebec law has more of a protection focus, really protecting the data rights of citizens. Both have value, and both can be combined and managed differently. So there's a lot of work to do in terms of international law comparison, I guess, a lot of research as well that could probably provide interesting innovation that can then be brought back here. At the same time, I think the focus at this point is also to help really on the ground people, like small organization who just want to use their own data and maybe aggregate it with their other colleagues in the sector, and this way have a better understanding or leverage in the market, for instance, in culture and health. So at this point, this research we're doing with CS is really about providing concrete tools that can be implemented in the short to medium term, or at least learnings that can help us advance. Because sometimes waiting or just looking at the broader international picture can be a little bit overwhelming, or even like create some inertia.
In relation to these international matters, we have a question here. How would a Quebec civil law data trust interact with international stakeholders, meaning international data contributors or users? Do you have an answer to this? If we set a data trust in Quebec, what would it mean for data originating or concerning people outside of Quebec?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't have an answer to this question. Like I said a few minutes ago, this is something I did not look into now. So, and I don't want to give you false information. So more research are needed to be able to answer this kind of question.
And yes, I mean, there's a lot of questions we're raising every day, and we are at the beginning of this project. So a lot of things still to be answered.
We note them down for future reference.
Yeah, and that's also why we've been setting up a prototype project for the next 2 years. We're waiting to see if it will get funded, but it's the best way to answer these questions often is to get your hands dirty and try to set it up. So that's what we're going to try to do. Another question here: data is taken, quotes, from providers without their knowledge and commercialized. There is no contract between provider and user of data. This is key to, okay, that's more of a comment.
Well, yeah. Maybe I could reply to that comment and the next one regarding data leaks. I think both of those are examples that arise from the very lack of regulatory, that the fact that our laws are all, what's the word? They're dated, they're old, they haven't been renewed. So I think that with the new law in Quebec, the new law at the Canadian level, those type of actions where people don't have a say, don't have any recourse for redress, we'll see a change of that in the future years. There will always be risk. So again, like those data trusts is another layer of protection for people who are willingly giving away their data, for instance, in order to contribute to public goods, such as, you know, discovering a new cancer treatment. So yes, I'm ready to share my personal data for this cancer treatment research, but maybe not for marketing purposes for a big pharma. And participating or contributing to a data trust that is really well frame and structure, provide confidence, trust that encourage and support collaboration. And that's really the goal here. But there will always be, you know, leaks, always people who go do some web scrapping. We just need better general laws to back that up. And I'm taking note of yet suggestion. Thank you.
So we're soon, it's soon going to be 1 p.m. I see a lot of comments coming in.
Yeah, it's hard to follow.
Yeah.
Right, challenges. There's that as well.
Yeah. Well, we could go on for hours. So I just want to thank you, everybody, to have showed up in such great numbers, and special thanks to Sarah and Jessica. Again, this is only the beginning of a project that Thies, you know, Thies is coordinating basically the liaison, and we do this connection between what's happening in the data and technological world and the law environment. But we're doing this with lots of different players. There are projects led in the culture sector by Culture pour tous. Synapse is very much involved as well. All what's happening in the smart city movement with Montréal en commun. So we're all very excited, and everybody has a piece in this bigger picture. And there will be other opportunities, other webinars, and next one will be in French. I see that there was an overwhelming majority of people in French, so sorry if we had to do that in English. And again, do not hesitate in contacting us, and we'll be very happy to try to answer all the questions that remain. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you.